I'm telling you, when they get the position first. Why una no come win APC? Why una no win
A very big thank you for staying with us on Global Morning here on Global Television. We're live in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. We believe you're watching us on Star Times channel 276, from where we're broadcasting 247. You can also follow us across all of our social media platforms. The handle is at GlobaltvNG. You will find our conversations on those handles all day, every day. So quickly this morning, we have two topics in front of us. The first is the one around fuel subsidy removal. What exactly are the implications, all right, for the economy? What are the challenges? What are the concerns? What are the, if you like, blessings in disguise that we should already know? Because on the one hand, people are getting very apprehensive about the proposed removal of fuel subsidy. But the question is, what does it mean in practical economic terms? That's the first conversation we're having, and then we'll move on to the second as we make progress into the show. This morning, my guest is somebody who has a handle on these issues and is passionate about discussing them, creating context and beating perspectives into the conversation. I'm joined this morning by Idakolo Gabriel Bolade. He is the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, SD&D Capital Management Limited. It's a pleasure to have you this morning on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Great. I don't know at what price you bought fuel between yesterday and today, but again, one of the biggest conversations in Nigeria right now, yes, especially at this point where the incumbent government, federal government, that is at its twilight, and then there's a new government coming into place on the 29th of May.
Yeah.
What have been your thoughts about fuel subsidy removal?
Actually, I actually support fuel subsidy removal.
And you have your reasons?
And yes, actually, if you look at for the past 7 years or thereabout, from the past administration, the cost of fuel subsidy has been spiraling without any accountability on it. And this has been like a pipe that is used to siphon funds that are supposed to be used for meaningful development of the country. And if you look at over the years, we have spent trillions of naira and billions of naira subsidizing fuel. And this year, it has also been remarked that the first 6 months of this year, we are going to be spending 3.6 trillion for fuel subsidy. If these funds are put to good use for infrastructural projects, it will have gone a long way to reduce the debt burden on the country. So I believe that fuel subsidy is something that should go, but there are conditions that should be taken or before fuel subsidy is
we are going to talk about those conditions in detail, but then you already made an allusion to the previous administration, which yes, of course was led by former President Goodluck Jonathan.
Yes.
Right? In 2012, January of that year, we remember clearly, there had been an attempt by this by the previous government to remove fuel subsidy, yeah, and then we saw protests in many parts of this country against that move.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, most of the key players, or at least a good number of the key players in the APC today, had kicked against it.
Yes.
Some of them had even taken to the street at that time to say, hey, look, you've got to halt this. Yes. You can't remove fuel subsidy because Nigerians will suffer.
Definitely.
But today the government is telling us that, look, we need to remove fuel subsidy because it's the way to go. Yeah. These same persons had told us there was no such thing as fuel subsidy, that was a scam. So you're wondering, at what point these governments possibly realize that there's something called fuel subsidy in practical terms and now wants to remove it?
Actually, the first assertion made before this APC government came was just for political motives. Because if you are in government and if you are in the oil and gas sector, you will know that definitely a form of subsidy is being paid, right, based on landing cost, based on international price of crude, and based on refining cost. You will know that a form of subsidy is being paid, but we do not know the exact amount or the leverage and the percentage. So at that point in time, it helped the political movement of the opposition, then APC, to be able to say that there is not such things as fuel subsidy. But when they came into government, they realized, or they now settled, to the fact that there's actually fuel subsidy, and it is against public opinion to remove fuel subsidy at that time, because their government was new and they had campaigned against any form of additional hardship on the people. But over the course of the years, you will discover that even the pump price of fuel continue to increase despite the payment of this subsidy. So you discover that instead of helping, the state was not removed. And petroleum was now at 190 per liter of fuel. So you discover, as at that time, when this was going for 80 something, so you discover over 100% increase has gone over it. But one fact still remains, that this present government, this outgoing government, did not do a good job in ensuring that the problems of Nigerians were alleviated, because it became multifaceted. Apart from fuel subsidy, we have other issues that we kept dealing with, even in the country, because of constant borrowing that did not add value.
I want to talk to you about what you already mentioned in passing a while ago, which is a set of conditions that we've got to meet.
Yes.
If we must remove subsidy, because we have heard about how that the ideal method, or if you like, approach, will be to remove in phases.
Yes.
But we have seen these attempts in the past already.
And it didn't work.
Yes. And then Labour, I want to talk about Labour for a minute. And then Labour has always vehemently
Yes.
kicked against it. Do you see that changing now? Because if Labour kicks against it, it means we already are hitting a brick wall.
Yes. If you look at the antecedents of Labour as regards fuel subsidy, you will discover that Labour will always want to come to the table for negotiations after government has brought out intention to provide palliatives.
Right.
And over the years, even in the past administration of President Goodluck Jonathan, those palliatives actually did not really solve the problem. And now, this new government, outgoing government, or incoming one, will also want to provide palliatives. But I believe that presently palliatives might not solve the problem, and that is where Labour would kick against the proposed fuel subsidy removal. They have to